Welcome back, everyone, to another Sabaton reaction video. There were two different options I could use for this particular song, which is called the Unkillable Soldier. I decided to go with the lyric video just because it's going to be a lot easier for us to talk about the word. There is a music video with our friend Indy Nidell playing in the lead role. It's kind of silly, but this song is kind of ridiculous when you think about the subject matter, but it's all true. We're going to talk a little bit about the history behind this song. Excuse me, this song is from their upcoming album, which is actually just a couple of weeks away now, which is their second album about the events of the Great War, so I'm super excited about it. I've seen some of the names of some of the upcoming songs, like Hellfighters, which is obviously going to be about the Harlem Hellfighters of the 369th U.S. Infantry. There's a song called Dreadnought, so we can expect what that's going to be about. We've already seen a couple of them, like the Christmas Truce, and Soldier of Heaven, which is about the Italian front up in the Alps. So we're going to get into this one today. As a reminder, I do not make any money off of these Sabaton reaction videos. All the money goes right to the record label. So if you want to support this channel and you want to encourage me to keep making videos like this, please consider joining over on Patreon. There's a link in the description. There are a lot of perks that you get with that. We are going to be doing a patron-only stream on Sunday. Sunday afternoon. I'll let you know what time once we get a little closer. Probably tomorrow sometime I'll announce the time for that. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and dive into Sabaton, the Unkillable Soldier.
Into the fire, through trenches and mud, so Belgium and Ireland with war in its blood, leading the charge into hostile barrage.
So by design, he was made for the front line, and I see the eye patch, and I know where they're going with that, because I've seen the music video to the song already, and I did do a little bit of studying into this guy, because I didn't know half of his story, probably more than half of his story. I knew just kind of the basics of it from past reading, but we're going to get into some of the details today. Son of Belgium and Ireland. I think he actually was born in Belgium. In fact, let's go ahead and look it up a little bit here. I pulled up some information just so we'd be able to have it at easy access. So his name was Sir Adrian Carton de Wiart, and I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm probably getting it wrong. He's born into an aristocratic family in Brussels in 1880. He's the eldest son of his parents, and he was by his contemporaries believed to have been the illegitimate son of King Leopold II of the Belgians. So man, this guy was born into a crazy story. Spent his early days in Belgium and then in England, but one of the things that it says there is it talks about him kind of being made for the front line. You know, there are certain people who it's just obvious to everyone that they are just born for certain things. And in this case, this is a guy who just seems to have been born for war. You know, George S. Patton's another example of that. He's a person who just seems like war was his thing, and he was not going to be happy or feel like he was thriving doing anything else. Ulysses S. Grant was not good at anything else. It was basically said that he was good at two things, being a husband and being a general, and that was about it. Some people are just that way, and this guy seems like he was that way. So fought in Africa, wanted more. He fought in the Second Boer War, and he was shot a couple of times in the Second Boer War. And that's going to become a common theme with this guy, is getting wounded, because he has just no fear, and he's very reckless in combat. So he gets himself shot and hurt badly quite regularly.
Back in Europe, then straight to France, he's joining the Allied advance. Through the sun and the devil's wood, all the battles that he withstood. Born a soldier, enjoy the war. And that's actually a direct quote from him. He said something about how he kind of enjoyed the war. I mean, this was a war that nobody enjoyed, but this guy did. So the Second Boer War, he's wounded in the stomach and the groin in South Africa early in the war, and he was invalided home. His father was furious when he learned his son had abandoned his studies, but allowed him to remain in the army. He goes to Oxford. He gets a commission as a second lieutenant in the 4th Dragoon Guards. He's transferred to India in 1902.
So the First World War comes along. He was en route to British Somaliland when where there was a low-level war underway when he ends up being called back and he gets sent instead to... Oh, it looks like... Oh, wait, let's back up for a second here. He fights in Somaliland in an attack on the enemy at Shimber Barras. He was shot twice in the face, losing his eye and also a portion of his ear. He's given the Distinguished Service Order on May 15th, 1915. So at this point, he's already been wounded in 2 different combat situations in Africa. In February 1915, he goes to France to fight on the Western Front. He's wounded 7 more times during the First World War, losing his left hand in 1915 and pulling off his own fingers when the doctor declined to remove them. You know, there's another story like this. There's actually a lot of stories like this of situations where they basically say, well, we're not going to remove that, but you're going to be a cripple. And so he basically is like, well, if my hand having to recover is going to keep me from being able to fight. And he just yanks off the fingers. I'd love to know more about that particular story. But it was said that at the Battle of the Somme, and I think he got the Victoria Cross at the Battle of the Somme, that he would be, since he had already lost a hand and lost an eye, that he was pulling the pins on grenades with his teeth and throwing them. In fact, there's, I think, right here we go. So Lieutenant General, he ends up a Lieutenant General, Sir Adrian Carton de Wyatt, whose dauntless courage and inspiration and utmost energy as a Lieutenant Colonel commanding the 8th Battalion of the Gloucestershire Regiment, earned him the Victoria Cross on the 2nd of July, 1916 on the Somme. So, I mean, if that was where the guy's story ended, that would already be nuts. He's wounded twice in the Boer War. He's shot in the face twice in Africa in 1915. And then he goes to France and gets wounded 7 more times, loses a hand, gets the Victoria Cross. He ends up being promoted, I think, to the temporary rank of Brigadier General during the war, but he's far from finished.
Never die, shot through the eye. Never surrender, however they try. How they try, shot through the eye. He'll never die. At the edge of madness, in a time of sadness.
And I think that's fair, right? I mean, anybody who acts like this guy does on the battlefield is probably on the edge of madness. Not quite into it, but a lot of people who probably fought alongside him probably thought the guy was a little nuts. But imagine following a guy like that. I mean, it'd be hard not to, right? It'd be hard not to be inspired by somebody who's so reckless with his own life, leading you. Obviously there's no fear of death. Unshakable is the least of the ways you could describe this guy. And he was known as the unkillable soldier. That was something that it was referred to as during his lifetime.
In the battles when he was shot, kept on fighting and never stopped. In Arras, Cambrai, Passchendaele.
So Arras and Cambrai are down in the area around the Somme. Passchendaele is the Third Battle of Ypres. It's up in Belgium, so he's kind of on the, if you're looking at the Western Front as a left to right kind of thing, with the British on the left and the French on the right, this is kind of the leftmost part of where the British are, would be Passchendaele. Cambrai is where some of the early tank battles are fought.
Ignoring his wounds, he'll save the day. He'll never stray, facing the foes that are coming his way. Come his way, he'll never stray, saving the day. At the edge of madness, in a time of sadness, when a mortal soldier finds his home, who under fire, of attention wire, fought for the war, he is unbreakable. At the edge of madness, he will show no sadness, never broken, he'll be back for more. Through and under fire, of attention wire, no fear of death.
Should have a epic guitar solo coming here. This is usually where they are. No guitar solo. There it is. So let me talk a little bit about some of his later life, because he ends up a lieutenant general. He's not only in the Boer War and in World War I, he's also in World War II. And here's a picture of him later in life during World War II. You can see the missing hand, the eye patch. I mean, he is just like the walking, vision of like Rambo. At that point, there he is. There, I think there's actually a picture of him at one of the conferences with like Churchill and some of those guys. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. So here he is with, there's Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt, and there is our unkillable soldier over here all the way on the right in that image. Just crazy. He had lied about his age in order to serve in the first place. This was in 1943, that picture. In that place that we know as the Devil's Wood. Let me see if I can find it. There it is here. This is the remains of the trenches in Devil's Wood, which is where he was shot through the head. So just ridiculous. But it gets even crazier, because during World War II, he's on a British military mission in Yugoslavia, and he's shot down over the Mediterranean, and he swims to shore. Remember, at this point, this guy's 61 years old. He has one eye. He's been shot like over a dozen times. He has one hand. He gets shot down, swims to shore. He's captured by the Italians. He made numerous attempts to escape the POW camp, on one occasion eluding recapture for 8 days. Quite a feat given his distinctive appearance and his lack of Italian. He was eventually released 2 years later and was sent to China by Winston Churchill to be his personal representative to nationalist leader Chiang Kai-shek, a post he held until 1946. This guy, I mean, is he like the British version of Winston Churchill, or not Winston Churchill, of like Theodore Roosevelt? I mean, he's tougher than Theodore Roosevelt. This is nuts. Words for the war, understatement. Awesome. That's a great song, as is most of their stuff. And I'll put a link in the description to some of my other reactions to Sabaton songs. My very first time ever hearing Sabaton was one of the very first reactions I did on this channel, which was to Bismarck. So if you're new to the channel, or if you haven't seen some of those, you want to see some of my other reactions to Sabaton's, the links in the description to those. Like I said, all the revenue from these reaction videos to Sabaton goes to their record label. So please consider supporting on Patreon. Hit that like button if you would. And we'll be back with some streams this weekend. Go Rangers.